Oh man, what a beautiful day this is going to be. Welcome everybody to We Are Aquarius. I am Frank. Well, you can't see me right now, but this is Brad you're looking at. He was talking to me about something here with gun laws and all that, and I think that's a kind of important thing we can go with. But how you doing, Brad?
Can't complain.
Cool.
Oh, wait.
Cool,
What was I
cool.
saying? No, I don't really know much about my extent of gun laws is like the Second Amendment, like shall not be infringed.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like all these other bylaws have been made, and all of them just make it like I mean, they just all feel like infringements in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand it. I feel like what annoys me the most is like the initial principles of the Constitution is like innocent until proven guilty by like a court that
And
like has been
we've
elected by the people and all that sounds like real promising stuff. But then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you can't own a cannon and stuff like that because now I mean apparently you could own a cannon when he was saying it, but I'm saying like now you probably couldn't. You can't own all this stuff because that you're a criminal. We plan on you're going to use it to be doing criminal things.
mm-hmm.
And I don't understand that. It's like, well, what do you mean? You should be looking at it, it's like, hey, nice. As the government, it's like, nice, added protection to fortify our country. That's what I like to see. But no, you look at it like I'm a criminal. A criminal to whom? To your enterprise? That's the only possible explanation for
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about. A criminal to whom?
Well, to
Because
them
if
in
you're
that
telling me I
sense.
can't do something to like I mean, the second you have the right to say what you want to say, and you also have the right to protect yourself if you want to say it. We
Mm-hmm.
simple things. I think everybody, simple. They made it pretty clear in one and two. Then you keep going, but it just gets so weird anymore that the government is so afraid of its own people
Well,
wanting to protect itself and its own
once
citizens. And
once you get paranoid of your
I
own
mean,
people, I
I
mean, how long have we been together as United States and been okay with the way things are and all that? And now all this paranoia. Why? Probably because they're doing some shady shit. You only really care to be afraid of somebody when you're actually doing something wrong. It just kind of ends up being like that. And I think the fact is, it's like, well, oh no, if they find out, oh, we're screwed. So what do? They're like, well, if they do, we'll have these insurance policies in place, so they'll look like the bad guys. This is what happens with
what
very
happens?
deceitful people. They do this. They put these things in place before something happens. So it's like, see, it's you. It's not me. I did everything right because I made sure that you couldn't. You had no. I mean,
Imagine if you
look.
start getting a lot of hackers and stuff like that, and everybody starts getting really good at it, and are they going to start like banning VPNs and stuff? On
That's the thing.
are
That's
they
the
going to
thing.
start?
Look at what
Like
happened with the stocks as soon as people tried to save GameStop. They went ahead and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we're changing the rules. You can only sell now. You can't buy. It's
yeah,
illegal," because they're running these. I mean, it's in front of you, but it's also kind of behind the scene. They're running this behind the scene money laundering system with the
it was
stocks.
behind the scene, and now
It's
it's in
it's
front of
like
us.
it's
Now it's
like
like
if
you've
you
been doing it a little too long. We're
if
getting a little tired of it, especially
yeah
like people like
yeah.
Nancy Pelosi. But hey, to get back to the gun points, you
Mm-hmm.
know, one of the things I wanted to mention was when my daughter first started school, they had a police officer there for like the first couple days, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it was that, or maybe it was some incident in the high school or something like that, or something. There was for some reason there was a police officer there
Mm-hmm.
for a couple days, and when I'm dropping my kids off at school, my other kid's in the car, but I drop my kid off at school and I see all the other kids. I see this young police officer there, and the kids
Mm-hmm.
are waving to him, and the police officer's just like smiling, and and I'm just thinking like, you don't want this. Like this is why Ted Cruz got so upset. You don't want this. You know what this should be mandatory for the police to remind themselves why they're police officers to protect these little kids. What we were talking about before, to get off topic, is how in any war game, yeah, you got chess where you're supposed to protect the king. But if there was another piece on that board, you know what it would be? The prince. And I bet the prince would be the one that can't move at all. And, you have to protect him more than king and queen. You know what I mean? The king's out in the battlefield. That's why he's actually playing. You can kill all them, then who are they going to go after? They're going to go after the prince. And even then, what do? They would run the prince away to another place and find a cousin or somebody that we know that'll set him up to remember how important he is, and help him gain an army to rebuild his empire and all that. You know what I mean? That was the point. Family lineage was important and all that. And not, I don't really know where I'm going with this at this point, but
I think you lost your track there, but
yeah.
I understand. It's like, here's the thing. We even looked at this right off the very beginning.
It's the children. It's the children. That's what I'm saying. We've had a full frontal assault on the children. That's the point that I'm trying to get at.
Well,
we've allowed an open. We're so worried about protecting ourselves and all that, even our gun laws and our rights for we've let the children be completely open to attack. And in any war game, you don't even have the children on the battlefield because they're obviously the ones you should be protecting. That's the whole reason anybody's battling, to protect their children. That's the only reason.
It's always for the future of things, really.
You've let your children. We're letting our children open attack. They don't even know what to believe anymore. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? It's completely. It's my choice. I always thought.
Hey, Altison, what's up, man?
Your autonomy was. And it's not just in my boy and a girl, but I'm listening to the youth talk about guns like, oh, they're just the worst. They kill people. Guns. Yeah, I know you got people without guns that can still bludgeon people to death with bats and stuff like that. That can still happen every once in a while. But guns, they kill people fast and quick.
That's the thing that I don't understand. It's like, oh, let's go back to these primal weapons and stuff. I like to watch medieval movies and stuff, but not because I want to relive them. Do you understand? You saw movies like, or you even seen TV series like The Walking Dead, when, what's his face? The one kid that you liked going with Rick the whole time and gets beat in the head and dies by
Morty?
Not Rick and Morty.
What? What are you talking about?
The Walking Dead. The one Chinese guy. The one Chinese guy that gets killed by Negan. He gets hit in the head by a bat until his head is smashed like a pumpkin on the ground, with his wife right next to him. So, getting killed by blunt force trauma, by knives, by things like that, way worse of a death than just getting shot and killed and bleeding out. I gotta say, there's certain ways to die that are way worse than the brutality that happens in medieval warfare, where you're sticking somebody with a knife and hacking at them and then beating them over the head with a hammer or a mace or something. It's way more violent. Way more violent. I'm just saying. Like if we get rid. But here's what I'm trying to get.
Dumping a baby in a dumpster.
Let me get to my point here. If we get rid of the guns, we're going to be going to more cruel and unusual fights than with a gun. It's much more humane to be taken out by a bullet than to be bludgeoned to death and skin carved off by swords and weapons and knives and things like that. I mean, I'm just saying, if we get rid of the guns, it's going to be way worse. You're going to have so many people beating other people to death with spiked bats. Spiked bats and things like that.
They'll suddenly increase the amount of police to take away all the guns. They'll have all the guns, but they won't be like, oh, we're all in a peaceful society. Yeah. The police don't need guns either. No, the police will definitely have their guns.
Yeah, do you see what Aldison said there?
As soon as you're in check, we can just push the bar.
What? Yeah, you see what
I don't know why. You're right.
You gotta click it.
Offline channel.
You gotta click it when you gotta reload it.
You
loaded it when we were offline. You didn't load it when we were online. But yeah, it's the guillotine's no longer an execution mat because you're gonna feel all the heat in the pain in your neck. You're not going to be able to talk because you're not connected to your vocal cord or your lungs anymore. But you're going to be like, and then you'll bleed out, but it's going to be a sharp pain, very sharp pain in your neck if you got guillotined, and all that. I mean, the fact is, it's kind of true. Guns, if you get taken down by a gun, it'll hurt and then you'll bleed out. But passing out is probably the, you know, not as
If you're
horrible
hurting,
way to
bleeding
go.
out, they'll just
Then
shoot you
getting
3 or
beaten in
4
the
more
head,
times.
bludgeoned to death is one of the worst ways to go. If we get rid of guns, you're going to have tons of guys with baseball bats killing each other, and you're going to feel every
Nails in 'em and
single
stuff.
and nails. You're going to feel every single hit. You're going to feel that, and it's just a horrible pun. Look at how Jesus died. They beat on him. They whipped him. They scourged him. I mean,
I know.
you're gonna have that kind of stuff come back. You're gonna
Such a
have the
great-
most.
it's such
You're
a
gonna have
great
the most.
example. Let's
You're
get
gonna
rid
have
of
the most.
guns. I bet Jesus would have. No,
Yeah,
no,
I
that's
think
not right.
Jesus.
I don't want to bet.
I don't want to say it in a horrible way, but I think
That's why he
Jesus.
chose that time.
I think
That's why he chose
Jesus.
that time
because
for
it
the
was
most
the worst.
excruciating way to
Yeah,
sacrifice
the
himself.
most excruciating way to
It
go.
wasn't now.
Getting crucified is the worst way to die, especially with all the
Yeah.
stuff that happens before
You
that.
make a good point.
I think Jesus would be like, if Jesus
funny.
could pick a timeline and be like, I'd rather just get executed by a firing squad. I don't want to have to go through all that shit. But he went through all that. It kind of proves
I
a
know.
point. Like, he suffered. But I'm just saying, it's, Alton's saying there's studies done that decapitated will live for a short time. Yeah, it will. Did you see the Nazi
Chicken-
scientist
chicken-
experiments?
chicken will live for even a
Did you
longer
see the
time.
Nazi scientist experiments where they hooked up tubes to the blood vessels in a dog after they decapitated it, and it was still going because they could pump the blood through, and as long as you got oxygenated blood pumping into the head, it'll still kind of live for a bit. This is crazy. Your head's still lit because you're here. This is all body that functions to keep this going.
You're gonna make me want to talk about the soul.
Anyway,
But
what I'm trying to
keep
get
it on
at
gun
is
laws.
is if gun deaths are far more humane than being beaten to death by a hammer, a baseball bat, carved up by a knife, a sword, or God knows what, electrocuted with a bunch of electricity guns or something like.
I know.
I'll keep the guns. I'm just saying, if you want to go and you want to live in a society where you have no
I know,
guns,
they
you've
know
got a
they still keep
constitutional
you alive and
republic,
want to torture you.
go down to Brazil and live there because they have no guns. Only the criminals have guns because nobody's allowed to own any guns. So these criminals start their own gangs to protect themselves from other people because the police don't protect them. And now the police brand them the enemy, and so they have fights back and forth against each other. If you want to see where America's going to go to without guns, go down to Brazil, live there for a year or two.
Plus
And you
3D
tell
printers
me
exist.
if that's the way you want to live. I'm sure most people will say they don't. I'm sure if you live there and you're used to that, it's like, well, this is life and I love it. But that's kind of how it is. The same thing like if you grow up in an inner city and then you go to another inner city and you're like, well, I'm used to the gun violence. It's not, I'm kind of used to it. But does it make it safe? No, it doesn't make it safe.
I know.
It never makes it safe. But
Yeah,
I'm just
that's what
saying, if
everybody
you want to
keeps doing.
compare us
Everybody
to
just
something
laughs
else,
it off, make a
look
joke
at
and
Brazil,
compromise.
look at the Constitutional Republic of Brazil, and then look at us, and then you tell me what you think is better. I think we have it better here. We don't have giant pockets of gangs all over the place. Brazil is just one giant inner city, essentially. It's like Milwaukee 300 times or Chicago 300 times bigger. That's essentially what Brazil is. Essentially, it's like inner city every single place you go to, because as soon as you go into the next
Chicago
street,
scares
you're in a
me.
favela. And if you're in a favela, some guy might pull out a light machine gun and go be like, I don't know you. And then you're dead because he doesn't know you. You don't need a picture
was
ID.
it.
He just remembers you and he's like, I've never seen you before.
Yeah.
I mean, do we want to go to that? It's almost like they kind of have the Wild West down there. But in a factional inner, clan section kind of type deal. Like they're
Well, they're letting it take. It's like I said though. It all starts with the youth. I don't know why you don't see more of understanding that it's like if you train your youth, like we were saying, we're making our kids so soft now that as soon as something goes out of their way, they don't know how to handle it. They start freaking out. They can't deal with it. And you know what I mean? You wonder why kids are shooting. Yeah, I get it. I get it. You know, the one argument was great. I loved it. I loved it. And it's such a great point. You don't see kids with baseball bats killing 20 people in schools. And that you're absolutely right. But I
But let's
still
just
say
say,
you have
let's
3D,
just say if
you
you
have 3D
still
printers
you had the option
and
and then you
and
started
you have
beating a couple
bombs.
people off the head, some guy's got to live in a hospital for the rest of his life because now he is dumb or comatose because you hit him a few times in the head with a baseball bat,
I know.
and now he's going to live
That's
the
the
rest of
sign,
his
and
life,
that's
and
the
his
whole.
parents have to decide. Do I have to pull the plug or do I just watch my child
And
sleep
that's the whole
in a
message.
bed half alive?
Less deaths were more we're fine. At what level? Okay, maybe if we only have one school shooting or one school bludgeoning a year, if there's no guns, that's like it gets to the point that it's what's the point? The point is that there's deranged children out there,
And they need
and how are they
help.
how
They
are they
need
getting at the how are they
mental.
getting at this level?
Yeah, how are they getting to the level? There's not enough mental help.
I think
You take
everybody
it,
needs help.
and
I
the
think that's
fact
the
is,
reality of it.
yeah, but the fact is, you take
Cut out
away the
you took out the
guns, they're just
middleman in
gonna
kids'
find
lives.
the people
These
that
kids are
want
so
to
stressed
commit
out they have no one to
crimes.
talk to.
The people that want to commit crimes are gonna find a way to find a weapon. They're either gonna maybe
Yeah.
in the future they'll bring
Anybody does. Everybody's
flamethrowers.
resourceful.
Would you rather have no guns and people making homemade flamethrowers, burning people alive, and now your like skin is all melted because it's like I would have rather just gotten shot
If you
instead of
don't
being like some
fix if you
people.
don't fix the problem of why kids are doing this, why are kids getting
Honestly,
so
I think
upset?
it's because of God. It's because they want to take God out of the equation. You're like, no, God's not a part of this. It's science. It just happens. There was nothing else out there. If we're intelligent, there's got to be something else that's intelligent, or at least some intelligent design to this. There's got to be a reason for this. But we keep teaching our kids nothing means anything, and so they grow up to
Yeah,
be complete assholes. And that's what we got. All these
I
scientist
know.
assholes. Like, look at Bill Nye. He's like, that freaking, arc never happened. Or kicks the thing over, and is acting like there's no floods. There's no evidence of anything. He's like, I'm right, and blah, blah, blah. Look at the arrogance within the fucking scientists themselves, or people claiming to be scientists. This is a freaking mechanical engineer who's not even a scientist.
I never
And
told people to shut down the schools.
I'm just, you look at the craziness we have today, and it's like people are following the dumbest people possible just
I
because
know.
they have a name. They have a catchy phrase that you liked them when you were younger for some reason. And it's almost
I
like an
remember.
indoctrination tool. It's like they got you to like the guy when you were young. He grows up and he's like, oh, hey, I like that guy. He's there. Whatever he says, I'll believe it. And
I
then you
remember one time.
follow along toe and
My
straight up in tow with everything they say, and you don't realize you're being tricked, because that's the other thing. People that are tricked can't even admit that they've been tricked. They don't even realize it.
there was
Look at what happened years ago in the 50s or 40s or whatever before. How many school shootings were there? How many people believe in God? A lot of people believe in God. Not very many
that's
school
such
shootings.
that's
Now, and
such like a big
less people believe
correlation,
in
but I love it.
less people believe in God or believe in a creator, a loving creator source. But I think that's what we have. Less
Just
people
God,
believe
not
in
just
that,
God.
and there's
Something
more
because
shootings.
you don't
Why
have
is
school
this
shootings.
in tow with the other? I wonder why. It's because people think there's just nothing there to care about you, or nothing even
It
exists,
doesn't.
and then they're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna shoot everybody up, and then maybe
Good
myself, because
morals
it doesn't
in
matter.
general.
You know.
It's good morals in general. Exactly.
Maybe
You
you don't
love this
have
idea.
maybe you don't have a belief, but you have to believe that other people have a reason to want to live. And
Listen, if
this isn't even
if
taught to
if
kids.
if teaching children that good things come to those who act good and all that, and being moral is indoctrination, then you can just argue that saying everything means nothing is just as much indoctrination at that point. Then
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if everything means nothing, and that's indoctrinating just the same.
You
That
know,
everything means nothing.
if they would have come out and they would have said, there could be something out there. I have a belief that there could be something out there and all that, but we haven't found that yet. But here's the science and what we know. Now that would be something.
Universes
That would
were
be something.
infinite possibilities, and it's like, okay, infinite possibilities, but none of them have a God that could, I don't know, able to control it all. None of them could have a God, even if it was in one. And if it was in one, then it's an infinite possibility. No, it's a 50% chance then that God is in this universe or he's not in this universe. If you believe in parallel universes where anything's possible. And I would venture to say, with everything going on in this universe particularly, you might want to just take the odds that he might exist, because shit is pretty, I don't know, kind of ironic how it's all playing itself out.
You just
And
have
it,
to think every day, like,
and
why is this so perfectly constructed? Shouldn't there just be some random stuff happening? Like a black hole just appears in your living room, and you're like, whoa. Oh, okay. I guess that could happen. Like none of that. None of that stuff happens.
Time doesn't.
Everything happens within a mathematical calculation towards the next sequence of events and the next sequence of events.
We don't
Very
have any
timely.
random time quakes in our area that just rumble time differently and distort it.
Yeah,
You never
people
know.
don't
There
just
could be-
appear
there could
from
be-
your past and are like, whoa, I guess I'm not dead anymore. And then they're just in your living room and you talk to them. Random shit just doesn't happen. So when they say it was all random shit, it's like, if it was random shit, it would still be happening. But it doesn't happen. And there's no recorded evidence of all this random shit they keep talking about.
I mean,
it's just like,
what is law? What is law bound to? You can argue that even down to one level of, there's only one real law: magnetism. Which magnetism just is everything down to everything. It's magnetic.
magnetism becomes electricity. Electricity becomes magnetism. It's all there.
You can break it
That's
down
one
to
of the
even one law.
basics there. Yeah.
But why does one law exist? How can law exist without order? At this point, how can law exist without order? Paper or no paper? The Constitution is as good as a piece of paper. You can spit on it. You don't have to follow it. The paper will not beat you senseless. It won't move. It'll sit there with its words, and that's all it says. It's the people who uphold it that make it possible.
Yeah.
So tell me, if you don't believe in God, how can you believe in law without order? What is creating the law to follow?
Yeah. It's
what keeps the law following?
It's a thing that I looked up today because you wanted to talk about this topic, and the fact is, it is that verse here that we just looked up earlier. It's 15:13 in John.
15:13.
15:13 John. So
I would just read
all right.
15 from
you want me to read the entire thing?
Maybe from 10 at least to like 10 to 15 is pretty good.
Okay. All right. 15:10 in John. If you keep my commandments, you will. And if you want to see what I'm reading here, this is the New American Bible. This is the St. Joseph edition here. This is actually what I got from the brothers when I was in school long ago. But it says, if you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy might be in you and your joy might be complete. This is my commandment: love one another as I love you. No one has greater love than this, right? To lay down one's life for one's friends. No greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do as I command. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. I have called you friends because I have told you everything I have heard from the Father. It was not you who chose me, but I chose you, appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain. Bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. This I command you: love one another. To lay down your life for a friend, to love one another, is just the greatest. It's essentially like we're family if we do this because we know that that's the right thing to do. So, by protecting family, by defending your family, this is one of the things Jesus talked about. This is one of the that we have this in our, Constitution, the right to bear arms. Why? So that we can defend ourselves. If you have no arms, you can't defend yourself. So you can't protect your family. You can't protect your friends. If you don't, and I'm just saying, if I'm just saying, if we go to what Brazil has, and then they have, the criminals find a way to get a gun, you have to hope that the criminals are on your side too, or they could just kill you just because of like, yeah, I got an extra family and they kind of want that room over there. Sorry, man. I mean, there could be any reason. There's no way for you to defend if you're trying to live a good life, and there's no way to buy a gun because you don't have the same connections that guy has. So you're going to be looking at all these other black market people that are going to have the connections, and you don't, and you can't defend yourself or your family. That's one of the big reasons that I'm, pro-American with, how we have our Constitution set. But that's what it says right there, Yeah, the line being no greater love than lay down someone's life. And that's where it is. That is 15:13 in John. And you can find it there. That's what that's about. And it's just, you want to know what life is like. I'm just saying, you want to know what life is like without guns. Go down to Brazil, because guess what? There's people that don't care, and they're going to get guns, and you're not going to have them. That's what we're going to turn into, the very same thing, if we go that route. Because there's people that all over the place, they're going to do it. They're going to find a connection. They're going to be like, hey, man, what kind of old Russian surplus weaponry can you give me on the down low? And the guys can be like, I can do this and I can do that. I mean, look at how weed got into America for the longest time, being illegal, and people still doing it.
I know. It's
Connections.
like, it's just not to quote Colin Noir, but criminals don't follow the law.
That's the point. Criminals don't follow the law. So when you think you're following the law, they don't give a shit. They're gonna be like, yeah. you follow the law, I'll take your stuff. It's fine with me. There's people that just don't have a moral.
The whole point of this country. We're not going to let the criminals, including the government, think that they're going to pull a fast one. We're going to keep ourselves all fair and equal with everybody. Everybody's got the same opportunity around here. But then slowly and steadily, certain people capitalized above. But the original people, they were pretty good, right? They donated a lot of their money they're still super wealthy, I guess. But they made a lot of like libraries and stuff like that. They made like didn't even like the steel. What's his name? Like not Rockefeller, Carnegie. He did a lot of playgrounds and stuff. I think too. Maybe.
I think there was a lot of stuff for a long time that was done very well with good intentions. But then,
your legacy only dies
as we see with other people being corrupt at certain times. It's like
nobody remembers game.
So many corrupt things have been happening recently. GameStop is a great example of that, where it's like, we're gonna play the game too. We can do the same stuff. We can work with you, and they're like, nope, knockout punch. You can only sell. It's like they changed the rules, but because they have the rule book and they have the game. They have the game and they got the rule book. It's like you go to another person's house and you're gonna play the game, and you're like, but this is what it says in the rules. But I have house rules, and you're in my house. You have to follow my house rules and the game rules. And this is what we do. We just play along. It's like, well, you're kind of right there. We're playing into a game. We're playing into their game. You want to fix things, make things more fair, you have to make them transparent, or you got to play your own game. It's the only real way you can do it. That's why it's like, sure, you can make some money in stocks and stuff, but like if you really, you're playing into their game. It's like going to a casino. The house always wins. Like you're gonna lose at some point. You might lose big, but the house is gonna be there. They know the system. They have the system made so that you will fail as a majority. Some people will win. Some few little tiny people will win, but the majority will lose, and they reap in the profits because it's supposed to make money for them. It's not supposed to be dang it, they took all the money and we lost, I guess we're out of business. They can't do that. They have to find a way to have the system work for them. But when you go to it, you think they're being fair and honest. It's not always that way, especially with gambling places. You might be the lucky few, but most of you aren't. The same thing
Love
goes
that
for the
movie, Boiler
stocks.
Room. You ever
The
seen Boiler
same thing
Room?
goes for the stocks. It's just the same
Vin
way
Diesel.
too. No, I haven't seen it.
Oh man, the movie's great. They just make front companies and they boost the stocks up, make all these people buy into them, and then they just close the business and take all the money.
I'm just saying, like, look at what's happening with China. Did you research this with China? The banks are doing things with their financial housing right now, and there's a lot of people angry, but they cannot protest it. They can't go against it. They can't
If
do
they stop
anything.
paying the mortgage.
They can't do much of anything. I'm
They
just
stopped
saying,
paying their mortgage. That's
there,
what I
we're,
heard. And and
what we're
China's in debt big time.
maybe the fact is back in the 40s and the 30s and everything, people were more honest or more forthwith. And because look at Nixon, he resigned because he was going to have a bad name. Look at Clinton. Did he resign because he was lying and he got impeached? No.
Can't even remember if he did.
I'm just
No,
saying, like,
everybody told him.
people have gotten more manipulative and more schemy,
He didn't
more
resign. He
undermined
got
over
impeached.
the years compared to probably how the nation started. The nation started with, Washington. They wanted to kind of make things fair, make things work for us. We're kind of different states, but united and all that. And then after some time, some corruption seeps in. And usually what we do always is clean it out. But it's gotten to such a gunky point that we don't even know how to clean it out anymore. Most people don't even they're just used to it. They're just used to people lying to them and they're like, "Yeah, I guess he did lie to me. What can I do?" We become so complacent that we're not voicing our opinions anymore. We're just sitting here complacently
I
going
think
with the
about it.
system.
That's what I keep saying to everybody. Everybody just going to keeps making memes and think it's funny.
And you look at
And move.
like higher up people that are really really powerful. Like let's just throw out like Steven Crowder or something like that. It's just a comedy channel. You think he's
Yeah.
like trying to show you the information, and he does try to quote some sources, but he just wants to be a comedian and
But
stuff.
I said
And
that even with Babylon
it
B.
turns into
At
that
what
with
point
a
in
lot of
time,
these people. They just want to make it a comedic valve, and that's all
how
you
are
end
you
up
how are you spreading
watching is
awareness?
just
The people have to
comedy.
be subscribed to you. The people that are subscribed to you already know it. The joke's already inside jokes as it is. You're not spreading any awareness. If you didn't get the joke, you're just gonna be like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like the awareness is that you already
Mhm.
knew the situation and now it's a funny play on it.
Or if
So
you were to
you're
watch
not spreading.
somebody that was from the left, like I don't know, Bill Maher or some of these other people, they just want to make these jokes. There's Oliver, um, like John Oliver, something like that. They make these jokes. They try to incite people, get them a little bit enraged, but ultimately they're just trying to make some comedy. And most of what we're trying to look at now is trying to find facts. But back in the 40s,
Comedy equals
back in the 30s,
acceptance.
well, I can't say it was always perfect, but at least because especially news articles and stuff, they try to like promote certain things. There's always going to be some greedy people out there, but for the most part, people try to be honest because back in those days when we didn't have all the digital stuff all the time, what we ended up with is looking at somebody based on their character. If they did good, then we thought they were worth their weight in
But
gold.
that's what I mean.
And
You
now,
think
even if
what's his
all
name?
the corruption that you could say either president had, all the corruption is like, well, I mean,
What's
this
his
is
name that
horrible. This is horrible. People would used to resign over things like this. They used to be like, ah, crap. Yeah, I'm sorry.
what's his name
That wasn't
from the
good.
70s?
Now
What's his
that
name
now
from the
they just
70s
go
with the
full bore.
ponytail?
They go full bore and they own their pride and they discard their sins. They don't.
What's what's the comedian with the ponytail from the 70s, It's a big group, you're not in it. He's
Oh
always
oh
talking about
oh oh.
the government. Starts with a C. His last name starts with a C.
Carl, is it? Oh, I remember
Can't,
his face.
I know it's on the tip of my
I'm
tongue.
a face person. I'll remember your face anywhere I go. If I see you once, I'll remember it forever. But names, they just come and go.
But he's always so
Altison,
right. But
do
the
you know the
thing,
name
his
Carl? I think the end last word is
name's
R.
not.
It's
You say Carl too, but I think that's his last name. But it's not Carlson. It's because that's somebody else. It's like
he was a
Johnny
stand-up
Carson.
comedian. Mostly what I saw him, he was like older, white hair.
He had the ponytail, yeah,
Yeah.
and he. and he really always talked about the government and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's
No,
but
he
that's
made
what I
some good.
hate though.
He made a lot of good jokes though, but
But that's what I mean. But he should have at some point been like, I'm tired of you guys looking at me as a comedian. That's why I even think at some point in time, sometimes I think like either Robin Williams didn't kill himself and he was about to try to say a lot of stuff that was going on,
I have a.
or
I don't know
or
why. I have
he
a hard
drove
time.
himself insane the same way Dave Chappelle did, where you think, am I just a cause? And then Dave Chappelle comes back and he seems to be woke now and he seems to be loving to get money. It's almost like he met the devil on the hill or
It's
something.
it's
And
funny when he tried to go woke. He also tried to make some light jokes about the LGBT, and then they didn't even watch anything he said. They didn't
that's
care,
the whole
and
point.
they went to
His
boycott him because
normalization.
they weren't smart
His,
enough to actually know the truth.
nah, he
They,
did. He
but it's
did
just
it. He
like
sold
last.
out there.
It's just
He
like
made it
last week.
normalized.
Well, sure, but it's like last week where you read the quote. They tell themselves so much lies that they believe these delusions. They create these own delusions. They believe it, and they just whiff their own air. You know, it's like they're living in a bubble. They can't breathe any other air. They can't. They. I've talked to people that are like, I won't read any of that news that comes from the far extremist side of blah blah blah. It's like, are you sure?
You
You,
put two people
you sound
together.
like you want to be in a tribe, and only your tribe only has the truth. It's not the truth. You're just smelling your own farts and getting high off that. Essentially, it's like you don't.
If you put two children together their entire lives and you never spoke to them or anything, you just gave them food, they would develop their own language and communicate with each other, but it wouldn't
Mhm.
sound like English. You know what I mean? It's
Possibly,
like
yeah.
it's just
Hmm.
I don't know where I went with that, but
Yeah, I don't really know where you're going with that. I think I think the fact is like we're talking about, would Jesus talk about defending them? And I know it's a little bit different what happened at the end because, he told Peter to put his sword away. He, lives by the sword, dies by the sword. He was trying to basically say, let's not go to war over me. I'm here to give you the example. They're going to take me away, but if you go and attack now, basically you're outmatched. You're gonna try to start a war, and it's not really what I want you to do. But I would like you to defend each other when it came to that. I appreciate you, for trying to stand up for me. But the fact is, here's the logistical sense: if Peter and his whole band would have died there, we wouldn't have known anything about this. It's got to be somebody to survive this to talk about it. It just has to be that way.
what what do you
And
think in the course of history
but the
would have
fact
happened
is
if
like
Jesus didn't exist at that point in
but
time?
but the reason that was said was because if you just followed example without that kind of stuff, then if everybody just led you to an execution, which is what ended up happening to the Cathars, which I feel really badly for them, but the fact is they were all killed off by the Catholic faith, by the Catholic Church.
You hear what I'm
Well, not
saying?
the
All right,
Catholic faith,
listen.
but the Catholic Church did end up going in and killing them off because they thought, they're not going to war for the Christian society. They're not going on the Crusades. They're just trying to live a life without it. They decided to martyr themselves or be martyrs for their faith. And that's honorable, but
You hear what I said? You hear
deadly.
what I'm asking though?
And at that point,
What
nobody
if Jesus didn't
survives.
exist? What if Jesus didn't exist? What would have kept happening? You know what I mean? Like if
We
you
would have
think about it,
we would have went into a complete kingship society. One king rules the world. That's what we've had for the longest time. This is the reason why Jesus was trying to kind of change things. It was to get us away from this feudalistic society. A lot of people think that that's all good and well, but that's
I
really
think it's
not.
true.
That's not the
I
best
think
thing
I think
because now you
all
got
that
this one guy that's God King, and he tells you what to do all the time, and you can't do anything about it because look at what
I
happened.
think Rome would have
Alexander the
took over
Great
the entire
ruled
world.
ruled most of the world. Genghis Khan ruled most of the world, and he would just have sex with anybody he wanted to, so he could spill a seed all over the place and just do whatever he wants. People get too big for their britches that they end up becoming tyrants. But our
Have
mainstay
no.
thing that we look at is Hitler, but you also have to look at Stalin. And you're like, well, what were they? Well, Hitler was a national socialist. And what's a national? It's just somebody that likes their nation, really. That's really all that really kind of means. If you support your
But
nation,
he's not a
you're a
nationalist. He killed
nationalist.
his own people. He would kill
But
his own people.
but
That's
he
not
was
nationalistic.
a national socialist. He was a socialist. I'm just saying nationalist just describes people that support their nation. That's all it means. If you like the president
I just don't think he really supported his
previous,
nation.
you're a nationalist. You're a nationalist.
I mean,
if you like your nation and you like to support it, you are a nationalist. That's just all it is.
But in a sense, he hated everything about the nation.
No, he wanted to purify it in his own.
He wanted to bring back but whose fault was it for that sense? Who decided, oh, I don't know, the United States to divide up Germania into all these different tiny little other countries? All he wanted to do is bring it back together and then take a few more.
He was trying to use what happened in the past, because the thing is, after World War I, they had to pay all this they had to pay all this money to well, the thing is, they followed him initially because the people of Germany had to repay all this money, because a lot of times, you even look at Crusader Kings, it's kind of true to some degree with that. You go to war, you win the war, you win the territory, and maybe some money from looting the territory and all that, or maybe you get some money. You lose the war, you have to pay the person that you fought after you lost the war. So you have to pay up all this extra money and cash is what they had to do. Their market went down. They didn't have a lot of money. Some of the elites that had money still had whatever they had, but the poorer people got even poorer. So you end up going into a recession/depression if you lose the war. This is just happens all the time. People don't think about this, but this is the truth. If you lose to the other country and now they're surrounding you, they're like, you lost a fucking war. You pay up now, or we're gonna put you in prison or kill you. You have to do it. That's what happened after World War I. And after that, Hitler tried to inspire his people to be like, look, this is what happened. It's these guys, the bankers, that were the ones that screwed us over, and these other people, and blah, blah, blah. And from there on, it went to the point that everybody's like, wow, if we just fight back for our territory again, we can get our country back together. And he seems like, he's going to be the guy to help do it. And there were other factors that were involved too. He got into power, and boom, we ended up what we ended up with. You get some
really interesting.
And I'm just saying, I'm not saying he's a good guy, but I'm just saying that is kind of what led to some of those steps that got him there. And the same thing for Stalin. I'm not going to praise Stalin for being a good guy, because he murdered more Jews than Hitler did. Almost in a weird way, I think he must have had some communication with Hitler to take over Poland. And at some point, they're like, I want a little more. And he's like, no, I want a little more. And then they were like, okay, fuck it. We're going to fight each other now.
Strategic reasons.
Yeah, strategic reasons. They wanted the resources in Poland.
Strategic reasons for what?
Yeah.
What kind of strategic reasons do you need to take you over? I mean, we're not planning on taking you over, Britain. We don't have a problem
and here's the thing. Nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever talks about the fact that Russia was
France, Britain. Don't worry about it. Why you want to fight us? We're cool. You didn't even...
Yeah, I'm just saying. You
war with them, now you want to be their ally? Only you can war with them?
Why does nobody talk about Stalin? Why does everybody just go right to Hitler? Stalin's the one who killed more Jews. Why is it Hitler's such a bad guy? Why isn't it Stalin's a bad guy? Why is that? And now we got Putin attacking another nation because what? Resources, right? It was like, well, they kind of were a part of us at one point. The same way we're going to look at Taiwan. Well, Taiwan was part of us at one point. We wanted to be a part of China, and it should be China. It is China's, right? If you're like a full on the Chinese side, you're going to be like, well, it was theirs before, and they signed an agreement, and blah blah blah. It's like, well, that was 100 years ago. Do you think the 100 years people later on are going to agree to that?
You think Putin's actually going to fire nuclear weapons soon?
He might, but I don't know. I think he's threatening a lot of stuff. I watched this one guy that actually came from Russia.
I don't know. What kind of answer is that?
I watched this one guy that came from Russia, and what he said they do militarily.
Anything.
Let me finish my statement here. What he said they do is initially they bombard the whole place. They'll do a long range bombardment, boom, 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 from cannons long range. And then once it's all pretty much laid out flat, then they'll move in because nobody wants to stay there. But guess what we do as America? We fly over and bomb it. Boom, 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 boom. Knock out all the military. And then we go in. But we don't necessarily go into the cities so much to do that. But then again, I guess someone's going to contest me there as far as some the different operations. And maybe we did some clandestine stuff. But I'm just saying, like military wise,
how much money? $40 billion over in Ukraine.
Here's the thing.
I mean,
here's the thing. Military wise,
are more people dying in Ukraine than like South America or something?
Do you know why?
How are we labeling people's lives and stuff like that? What is so important in Ukraine?
But resources of some sort. So maybe it's the pyramid you were talking about. Maybe something to do with that. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to research more stuff. Because even Hitler was trying to research all these esoteric things that were of the past. He was trying to learn more about that. So any of those antiquated things that they could find, they would try to use that, whether it was black magic or something like that.
I just don't understand anymore. You spend like $40
billion interested in that.
During a COVID pandemic and all this, you have this random war and nowhere near us, and you're like, we have to defend Ukraine. Such a level. But yet,
I gotta say,
Taiwan with China, like it's like Taiwan's a piece of crap or something. Our neighbors right below, we want to let them into our country and ship them around like they're pawns to your political gains.
Do you know why this is? I'll tell you right now.
Government just looks like a bunch of clowns.
I'll tell you right now. It's the same thing we're talking about with guns. It's if you got spies in a place, or you can understand what they have and what they have not. And America's like, do we want to go to war with this thing? I don't know. Might be more of a hassle. Maybe we would win. Maybe we wouldn't win. I don't know if it'd be a good thing. Maybe we'll just kind of check out at this point. With Russia, it seems like we've got confidence that if we had to go to war, we would. But with China, I don't know if we want to do that. So strategically speaking, I think they're already
China
looking
and Russia are like on the
this.
same team.
Now, not necessarily, no. They could be on the same team, but they might not. They're basically. But here's the thing: we're looking at it like, oh, they're just together. But that's what China would probably think. Russia and America would team up to fight us, and then Russia would think, well, if we're on our own, we might have to fight against China and the United States. The same. We're three major superpowers. Nobody else has the kind of power that we have. You want to say some other country, or you'd be like, what about North Korea? What about North Korea? North Korea could get hit with tons of cluster bombs and be fucking off the map within a day. You could just send over an F-15 and it's gone.
Are you saying
I'm not
that
saying you should do it, but
separate?
I'm just saying, like, when it comes to major superpowers, they're in it for themselves. We're in it for ourselves, whether we want to ally with somebody or not, for ourselves. But that's what it ends up coming to. Why do we not get attacked so much? Because everybody that, even the Japanese, I think it was the prime minister or somebody, at some point, I think in World War II or something like that, behind every blade of grass in America is a guy with a gun. If they landed and they had to attack the military, well, not only do they have to attack the military, but people that are going to form little Minutemen militia groups and fight back. That's too much to handle. It's just too much to handle. It's like almost every other American you meet is going to get a gun and fight back from an invasion. You're just going to see it. That's another amazing reason why we should have the guns, because if they're like, they disarmed all the Americans, I guess all we got to do is take out the militia and we can get in there. Nobody with guns is going to have anything. This is what people don't think about, but this is the facts.
No, the government wants to try to cut everybody down where they can all rely on the government, and the government will decide how much everybody gets.
The government can only do so much.
Why don't you just let people decide for themselves what they can get? And the government needs to stop trying to pretend like it's a business or like it's a business mediator. It's just supposed to take a little bit of tax and help us out with certain laws and stuff like that, upholding the laws that the people vote on. I mean, you get these politicians now that are literally like, I'm not going to uphold this law, and I'm going to, like, you're not really even supposed to have an opinion. You're really just supposed to follow the laws. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
and especially nowadays, like with what people might be saying, like, "Well, let's get rid of the guns; they'll be fine." You're just gonna. It's just this. It's just the thing. You're gonna find somebody else gonna buy a gun. They're gonna have the guns. But if everybody was armed, and some people say the truth is, an armed society is a polite society. I think that's kind of true, because you can't just sneak up on somebody and be like, "Aha, boom." And you're like, oh,
I think
I
this is
thought I had you. You know, it's just like,
why
no.
Hammurabi's code existed, because Hammurabi's code just basically, forced this idea. It's like everybody's gonna do whatever you want to do, but if you do wrong by another and we deem it, we're gonna have them do it wrong by you. It will be justified.
Hmm.
How the court sees fit. It's you're not gonna get an eye for an eye in the sense, but if they took an eye, you'll
Mm-hmm.
take an eye. Now that means, I mean, imagine that though. Imagine that idea where it's like, he fucked your wife. It's like you can fuck his wife, and the guy's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to cheat on my wife. I'm devastated of this. It's like, we're gonna kill his wife. It's like, well, I don't want that either. That's a bit more dramatic. We're gonna let that random guy fuck what takers? We're gonna let a whole bunch of people fuck his wife then. That's fine by me. Let it like
I think
six
I lost
different
the
dudes.
context of what you're talking about. So
An eye for an eye.
the guy's wife gets screwed, and so his justification for him, defense wise, is to screw the other guy's wife.
Once it happens to her, she's gonna go to the king and say, I don't want to be married to this guy. And he's gonna be like, why? And you just let me get railed. And he's gonna be like, the man gets railed by six dudes. And now he
Okay, that I can understand. It's just like I was gonna be like, wow.
or maybe he just gets railed right away. I don't know. But he has to suffer the punishment twice as much.
Yeah, I just think it's just
An eye,
like there's
it's an eye
so.
for two eyes, I guess.
I guess the basic point I'm getting to is that there's so many reasons why we would need the guns
Damn it.
is because defense
Edit that out.
not only from people that want to do us harm, but from other nations that want to come in and invade, take it over, and then if they did do that, they would guarantee make sure nobody could have any weapons except for them. Because most of these countries
Let's
kind
just
of run that way. I mean,
let's just make wall drones.
Does China let their citizens have guns? I maybe Russia does, but I mean, you'll get
Can
in
we
these
make
other
wall drones?
and then
Drones
people.
that just know wall. I like to see a wall drone, and it's like the wall drone comes down. You explain the situation. The wall drone's just like he's innocent, and it's like, all right, see you later. He's allowed to do that.
Yeah,
We need wall
you'll have an
drones.
armband. It'll say nice or
Well, the
naughty
thing
on
is,
it. It'll
the book of laws is
have
like
it'll have it'll have like a digital layout that you can see. It'll be like, oh, they committed a crime. I guess we'll have to watch that one. You know, follow you around all your
the
life and
the United States. The reason we have judges and all that is because back then it was like there wasn't really many laws written down. You kind of had to listen to the story and make a real good determination. It wasn't about necessarily fine writing certain laws. You had to hear each story for what it was and understand. Now, our book of laws is like 20,000 pages. Like
yeah,
you can't expect. I mean, one person even said it.
yeah.
They always say the reason a cop doesn't know the law is because he's not a lawyer. I mean, or something ruined that joke, but they said if he knew the law, he'd be a lawyer. If a cop knew the law, he'd be a lawyer. That's the whole point. You know what I mean? The law is there's so much to it. It's too big
That's why
anymore.
they say if you get pulled over by a cop, don't only talk to your lawyer. Don't talk to him because there's a lot of cops that will just use based upon whether they read you the Miranda rights or not. They will use everything against you. They will take any kind of evidence that they could find, even if they're not a detective or they're not a lawyer, and try to find a way to manipulate it into their statement against you, just so that they can make the case that like, hey, look at what I did. I'm really good. That's probably how they get their promotions. They probably get a promotion because of the detective work they've done, the amount of arrests they've done, the amount of work that they've done. It's always come down to work, right? But like, look at the one TikTok thing that came out recently. Did you see that one with the one woman? It's like, if I follow you long enough, I'm gonna find a reason to pull you over. Like she
Yeah,
just
yeah,
knows
this, yeah,
she's
yeah,
just
she's
gonna pull you
psycho.
over, and it's like, you
She's like, don't be
absolute
driving on me.
ass.
Get out of my
You
way. Like,
ass.
get out of my
How
way.
dare you just try to pull me over because, oh, you went 1 mile over. I'm like, oh, whatever. You know, it's like, you went 1 mile over because you're hanging on my ass. You're supposed to be, if we're traveling 30 miles an hour, 3 car lengths apart, and you're 2 car lengths apart, should have maybe I arrest you for a citizen's arrest for following too closely?
It's
Because
not a felony, so no, you can't citizens arrest.
I'm just saying, like, should I say something about you because you're not even following the law? Do you know how many times I see cops just literally turn their sirens on, get the light to go green for them, go through it, and then turn it back red for you? Just to go through it, and then they turn their lights off and they drive casually? You know how many assholes there are out there? You need laws to back you up. You need a camera or something like that. And I'm just saying, there's a reason why certain
There's
positions
gotta be
should
some
not
perks to
have,
be a cop.
because here's the thing: if we had cops
Can't
being
let them run
the
through
law,
reds. Didn't
look,
you always just want to run through reds?
I did in Brazil. The cops didn't give a shit down there. As soon as you got unlawlessness, I drove through at least 40 different red lights every single night at
Bring a point.
45 miles an hour. But guess what? That's a different country. They can't hold me to it, and they don't give a shit. Plus, you need cameras to make the proof too. They didn't give a shit. They drove by me with Tommy guns hanging out their car. They didn't care.
Hey man, you want to race?
I
Slow
think they
down.
would have raced me if I would have let them. I had somebody yelling at me because I was
Hey,
slowing down to
flipping.
slow down. At
Shoot
least go
him.
slow down through the lights instead of just fucking go through them.
I know they're speeding up.
I'm just saying, as soon as you get to a place where you have barely any law, because here's the thing: when the cops are the only ones with the guns, they're overtaxed. This is what happens in Brazil right now. They're overtaxed. They can't protect you because there's just too much stuff to do, and they have to make a moral judgment like, do I want to go here? I'm kind of tired. I've already dealt with like 5 criminals today. I'm just gonna sit here and clock some people, and maybe I'll go after them, or maybe I'll just go home and rest. That's the thing. They're too overtaxed, and they're not getting paid because the people don't support them, because they're like, I have to support the people because they're defending themselves. So you can't support the police. So they defund the police. They don't support the police, and you get a shit show, which is what Brazil's law crime rate is at. It's a shit show. Go down there. Live down there. You're going to have to just know people to be safe. You're going to have to know the right kind of person. Do you want to live that way? Maybe some people
It's
do.
just
Maybe some people like that.
like,
I'm just saying it's not safe for most people. And if we're going to live that way, we might as well just go like, I give up. I give up.
earlier on the
Take
road, you
everything.
know,
I can't defend
I had a
myself
nice,
anyway.
I
Just
had a nice
whatever.
open. There's no other cars around, so I'm going a little faster than the speed limit. And then once I start getting near the cars, I slow down, and I kind of get in my lane and all that. And I'm about to go in the right lane, all the way to the right, because my exit's the next exit. There's a 3 lane. And as I start to go, there's a car that's like speeding behind on the right lane, passing everybody. Because the right lane is basically the exit lane at this point. We're all in the left lanes. That's what everybody's trafficked. Everybody's in the left lanes. The right lane is like empty for a reason because it's only for exits. Everybody knows this kind of. It's not but everybody knows it ends. The right lane ends and stays for an exit eventually. You have to merge to the left eventually.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's empty. Everybody's in the left lanes already. So I try to merge to the right. Well, this guy's flying. He flies around me. I just turn back in, and I'm like, just go, man. And he fly, and man, he's zooming in the right lane all the way to the end until he finally merges back into the left or something. I didn't even pay attention because my exit turns. I couldn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw him flying up there, and I was thinking, I was like, you want to go fast over the speed limit, go ahead. I was like, but not in the right lane during traffic. Like, what? It's not that hard. I was like, the fastest I ever went was like on a straightaway highway in the middle of the night, late at night, when there was no other cars on the road. I was like, I'm not, like, what are you doing it for right now? If your kid's having a baby,
And they'd
like
have emergency
you're
lights on. There
still
are people here. If they have a real emergency, they will have their flashers
kill
on.
everybody.
They will have their flashers on or their emergency light on while they're traveling, and they will just be going 90 miles an hour to get to the ER or something like that. And if a cop pulls up and they have a reasonable excuse, like my wife's having a baby, or I feel like I'm suffering a heart attack, and be like, well, sir,
No
maybe you
reason to
shouldn't be
drive
doing it.
80 miles an hour
Maybe you shouldn't be
in the
doing
right
that or
lane
something like that.
when
That I'm just
it's a
saying.
merge ending lane.
Usually it's for a wife giving birth, right? It's usually that. And then the cop will pull them over and be like, okay, I'll give you an assistance to there, or maybe they'll have to give birth right there. Sometimes those things happen, but people will usually have flashers on here in Wisconsin for that. Otherwise, the guy's just being an asshole and just speeding along because they
I feel
want
like
to.
if that happens, then you poorly planned everything. There's such a thing as poorly planning things. A lot of
Well,
people like
well, well, not always that, not always that, because if you live like half an hour away from the hospital, you have to drive there unless you have the ER come and pick you up and take you there too. So either you go there or you wait 5 to 10 minutes for the ER to get there to take you there. So it's like now or 10 minutes plus whatever time it takes to get there also now. Because sometimes you just can't go to any hospital. Sometimes you have to go to a particular hospital because there's different hospitals, um, and one will take you and one won't take you because you're not on their,
I don't know.
you don't have
Even
that insurance
even
for
as a
that
guy,
particular kind of
even as
hospital.
a guy, I felt like the day that my wife was ready to go to the hospital, like she went one time a little early, and I was like, all right, yeah, I guess and even then I was kind of thinking like, are you sure? Because they do kind of, you think it's getting close, like it's all about that final, you're positive.
Hmm.
That's when I'll rush you there, you know. But I feel like the day that she was ready, like I knew both times. It's like, all right, I knew, like, yeah, you're definitely ready. Like, yep, like let's do it. I'm 100% on board. I don't know. I just drove right over safely and
Well, if you're only like five
called the.
minutes away from a hospital, that's you're in a good.
Well, I'm
But
like 10 minutes, but my
that's
wife sat
pretty.
in the hospital for another 2 hours or so before she actually gave birth anyway.
No, when I had to go, it was literally a half an hour drive to get there.
Yeah,
I got I
but
got there in about 15 minutes. And nobody
with my
stopped me.
with
I'm just saying, nobody stopped. I know when I was younger, I was more of that reckless
what do you want
guy.
to have a car accident and kill
And
your baby on the way over? That's what I mean.
no,
I
wasn't
just drove
reckless at
safe. I
all.
drove safely as hell.
I wasn't reckless at
It's
all.
like I was like, this is
But
like definitely a
but the thing
human
is,
life
like,
now.
if I wanted to be, if I chose that lifestyle, I could be a professional driver. I really could. I was pretty good at that. But then, I get older and it's like, yeah, what's the point? Get a truck and then you're just like, I don't really need to drive fast anymore. But
Yeah, I don't really like to drive that fast anymore either. It's not for fear of speeding tickets as much as it's just I don't know. The world is so strange anymore. A bird will fly into your car at the wrong time and you end up dying. I mean, the odds need to
a
happen
bird?
all the time. With
You mean like a
who knows, a
turkey?
crow?
A crow? How's a
Who
crow gonna kill
who
you?
knows?
No.
If you're driving like
No.
100 miles an hour and that bird flies in front and you can crack the windshield, and if you're driving that fast, you swerve and it's
It,
like,
it'll
oh,
it'll
you
glance
hit,
off the window unless you got a flatter window, which most fast vehicles have a window tinted like this. The only thing that really could
who
kill
knows?
you is if moose. Like if you drive under a moose in
Listen,
Canada, the thing will collapse on your vehicle, go through your window, and that 400 pounds of weight will just just will crush you.
listen.
I've seen
One time,
MythBusters tests on this. It's unless you're driving like an insane speed, you can like clip the legs and then go right underneath it. But yeah,
one
uh,
time my daughter was on one of those things where you sit. It's a swing that spins around in like a carnival thing.
mm,
It's a swing you sit on, right?
mm.
And it was kind of at like just a low key little, carnival thing. It was like at a church even.
Hmm.
but wasn't a wasn't even a Christian. It was like a Greek. I'm not sure how we were there. We just driving around. We saw it, and I was like, I like Greek food. I was like, the real authentic stuff. I was like, this place has got to be good. I even got a bottle of orzo, which is
I'll admit,
it was such a good time.
I
But
like some Italian food and I like some Greek food. That'll make them both upset with each other. But I like. I don't really,
but
well, maybe it won't, but I like them both.
my daughter went on this ride, and she leaned forward
Hmm.
too much, and the whole she flipped, completely flipped over. As the thing's coming down, like he stopped it, and as the thing's coming down, she's about to rail her head like on the floor, scraping along. But like he got her pretty good because I said something right away when it was happening because it was like as he was slowing it down already, and like I mean I don't know,
He didn't
it's
have
just
it latched, so the whole thing, as soon as he's slowing it down, it went like this, and then she's just sitting upside down.
she was like basically hanging upside down, almost so close to hitting her head in the floor. And it was only by the momentum, like it was like slowly leaning in. You know what I mean? Because the spinning is like slowing down. So, but man, like I mean, I like said I was like, hey, and he's like, holy, like I mean, dude sprung into action and got it. I just love how he's like, you're not supposed to lean forward, like you kind of like telling my daughter like. And I'm just thinking like, man, this could have been such a bad like
He was
incident. Like
he was telling her
she
not to lean forward
yeah,
in a strapped-in ride.
she really didn't do much of anything. It was pretty. I'm sure she did it that caused it, but she was like 5. And you know what I mean?
Well,
Like it
yeah.
wasn't much. It wasn't much of material other than probably like swinging. She probably was trying to
If a little
swing
kid's gonna
and
knock over then it's not built right.
but it,
A
but it
five-year
came
old
close.
messing
Yeah,
up
it came close.
a carnival ride, it's not built right. It's not safe.
It came
That
so
basically
close to
means
her,
anybody could have tipped it over at any point in
like
time.
railing her head up and on the floor. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. If you want proof that God exists, just the other day, my kid fell off the couch and almost hit the table, so close to hitting the metal bar. He's crazy. He won't stop like doing crazy things. By the grace of God, he didn't hit that metal bar. We keep trying to tell him, we keep trying to comfort him, we keep trying to move things further and further away. Put the table in the corner for the longest time. It, he's obsessed with climbing things. You can't keep him in a cage. You got to just protect him, but he's obsessed climbing anything
He
he
used to be
can.
like
Take,
like a famous mountain climber in a different life or something. Like, you ever
I
ask him
don't know.
that?
I take him to the playground all the time, and he always wants to go on the bigger stuff and climb up to the top stuff and do the danger. I mean, kid has no problem climbing a ladder, and he's 2.
Did you make him watch too many Spider-Man cartoon movies?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Just God protects us.
Yeah, I'm just
It's so
saying,
scary sometimes with kids.
you know, yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, it's about protecting it. It's about protecting each other. Even Jesus says it with the the Bible paragraph there to protect the ones you love. To lay down one's life for the ones you love. That's we
Isn't
just
that funny?
it's
The
just
same people who don't
but
want guns are also
but
like atheists and stuff.
yeah,
They're not like,
the
oh,
ones
our
that don't
most
believe in
powerful weapon
anything
is
and are like,
God. What am I worried about? They're-
yeah,
I don't know. It's weird to think about.
unapologetically ironic, isn't it? That's kind of the way things
You don't
are.
you don't believe in anything, but you also don't want people to believe in something. It's not fair that you believe in something.
I
Like I
think
feel
the
like it's like a
fact is
jealousy
I
factor or
think the
something. Like
fact is, like, we talk about it like everybody turns something into a religion, but I think the fact is we just can't exist without some kind of religion. We have to believe in something, even if that something is nothing, and we don't even believe in each other. You might be like, well, it's not a religion. Well, it's technically not a religion, but it espouses the same kind of acts as a religion does, because it's like you're still you're still group, you know, mentally doing the same stuff, You're trying to convince other people to do your group mentality stuff. If atheism was a real atheism, they would just not try to advocate it to anybody. They wouldn't say anything. They'd be like, I don't believe anything, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know? But what do? Here's my proof why nothing exists. See, this is why you're wrong. This is why you're wrong. Well, if you're not trying to espouse a religion of nothingness, then just shut up. If you don't believe anything, shut up. Don't try to say anything to anybody, because then you would be a true atheist. I don't believe anything. Nothing means anything. And so therefore, I don't really care. But you do care. You do care. Why do you espouse all these things to try to convince everybody else if you don't care? It's because you care. And you are letting other people believe that you don't when you do. See, that's a hypocrisy that goes back and forth. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. If you don't care, shut up. Don't try to tell anybody about anything, because it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter to me. So if I'm following my belief and you don't believe in anything, then it shouldn't matter to you at all what I believe for any real reason. Right? But no, that's not what happens. It's pushed down you to make you feel stupid. Yeah, well, it's pushed into you to make you feel stupid and like a complete idiot for believing in something that you can't scientifically prove. That's a religion. That's the modern scientific religion. A true atheist wouldn't care at all. We'll just, whatever. I don't really care. Agnostics are, I think something could be out there, but I'm not going to push it. They're kind of neutral. They're actually more towards what an atheist probably should espouse, but they don't know. So they might kind of be on, all that. So, yeah. So completely tolerant.
Like
Altison's saying right now too. A real atheist should be completely intolerant of others' beliefs. 100% agree with you, Altison. That's exactly what I'm saying. If you're a true atheist, you should not give a fuck about anything or anybody's reason for anything, and not push your agenda either. You should be like, hey, I don't push my agenda on you. Don't say anything to me. But that's not what's happened with modern politics and science. What does government want to push on us? It's fucking atheist shit all the time. Force it down our throats. It turns into a religion. Everybody's got to follow something. And you follow this thing, and it's like, now I got to espouse this to everybody else because everybody's a dumbass. I have to tell them why they're wrong, why they're stupid, why they don't understand anything. Yeah, I've heard it all before. Nothing new under the sun, right? Where's that statement come from, Brad? Nothing new under the sun.
Where does that statement come from?
I almost want to look it up right now, but maybe somebody will. Should be gathered all the information to make decisions. Only the difference is a religion can go on faith alone, and that only matters to them, no one else. Yeah. So the thing is with most religions too, it comes down to like, I believe it. I could tell you about it, but a lot of it comes down to a belief system, and you kind of have to believe it, or I can't. But I think that's what happens with faith, and I think this happens with religion too. I think what the fact is, this is what I think, and I think you might understand it. It still would probably be a part of the parabellum of the faith thing. But I think the fact is, we're here, right? We're in here. We're in this giant snow globe. Outside of the snow globe is everything else. Spirituality outside of our realm. But we're inside the snow globe, trying to look outside through this convex lens, looking at something that's distorted and we can't really understand it, trying to say what it is. We're not outside to say what it is. We're inside this giant lensing sphere that magnifies a lot of things, and everything gets over magnified, and so therefore a lot of things are just larger than life. So how is it to say that because we're inside the snow globe we understand what happens outside the snow globe? We have a distorted perception of reality. That's kind of how I see it. That's kind of how I see us. Like when we're a spirit, we move outside that snow globe and we can kind of like clearly see what's going on. And I think that's why a lot of spiritual teachers end up like giving us this very etheric understanding of reality, because I think the fact is we can only scientifically understand what's inside the snow globe, but we cannot scientifically understand perfectly what's outside. We have a perception, we have an idea, but it's to how far, you know? And I don't know what else did you want to talk about with this, man? I was having a lot of I was really enjoying that.
Just that, I can't understand why the government wouldn't want to be for guns for its own citizens, especially if it's allowing, you know, illegal aliens to come into this country at record numbers. Like I said, I'm all for illegal aliens coming over here, legally and going through a process. And we have a lot of fortunate things. I'm not a greedy person like that. I think that we can strengthen our country. I think that we should start to look at how we can, I agree, like one nation. I'm not really against it, with one nation, you need to start to have like real council, and you need to start to have like, it's just that everything's structured poorly. I agree. I'm all about like having resources. Work us like ants. That's what I want to do is work. I want to work. That's what I want to do. I want to work for a purpose. I want to have purpose. But sometimes I look at life and it's like when your purpose is literally just like, you know, it's fake because it's all everything. I don't know how to explain it. I don't need to get into like details of work, but it's just like it's all just distorted. How much you're a little too much of a cog in a wheel in the sense that there's a lot of like cogs that don't seem to be needed, and it seems like you're this crucial cog that happens to just be a 3/8 that seems to be really common, so they can just keep replacing it, but it's crucial to make the things run. All the other cogs are a little more complicated. They found
Yeah,
their way to fit into it somehow. You
yeah.
can't get rid of it now because they've jammed their way into it, but they require a lot of the money. It's
Hmm.
for just something that should have been simple in the first place. And it
I
seems to
think
be
what you're
getting
trying to say
annoying.
is where do we produce our fruits from? Knowing the way life is right now, it's like sometimes it's hard to try to find a way to fit into society, to do the thing that we could do well at. But half of our life is spent trying to figure out what we can do well, and the other half is trying to figure out, do I like to do that? And a certain portion of our life is spent trying to figure out, like, is that going to help us just be like relaxed and all that? Because a lot of people are sold on the American dream. You do this for a certain amount of time and then you retire and you just live. Most of people retire when they're like 50, 60, 70. And by that time, there's really, you know, your bones are dried up and you can barely move and go anywhere. And you're just sitting there watching TV most of the time. It's like, yay, I get to watch Netflix all day. Um,
I play Rocket League and I don't have
it's
to go to
like
work later.
you waste all
Nice.
your life for this idea that it just the fact is what we actually like to do, not just have to do, but we once you really come to understand it after some time, you really want to do something. You don't want to just sit there and watch TV all the day. Nobody really wants to do that all the time. There might be some downtime. You're like, oh, I'm really tired. I have this construction job and I'm just working, busting my ass, doing a bunch of stuff, and I just need a little bit of downtime. I totally understand that. But there's sometimes are
I
just,
would say not watching TV all day
you're
because that could be a perfection, but you don't want
well,
to just do
okay,
not you
okay.
just don't want to do nothing all day.
I'm
You
trying
don't
to
want
make
to
a
just relax all day.
yeah, exactly. That's my point. I'm getting to that point. Like you can't relax all day. You want to do something, and you want to do something that you feel is worthwhile. Everybody
Yeah,
wants to do that.
meaningful and accomplishing.
Okay, there's a small percentage that just want to sit on their ass all the time, and those are those kinds of people. But there's also people that are disabled. They can't do very much because this kind of disability or that kind of disability. It's now life is kind of treaded upon,
I
and they can't
like
do
for
much.
like
But
a month or two to like just to sit on my ass and do nothing. But after about a month, I
mhm,
get to the point where it's like I need to do something. I can't like not do anything.
yeah, yeah,
Longer
it's
than a month would make you go insane. It's like
it's just a human nature that we have. It's the same thing with almost every animal you see out there. All the animals are out consistently all day long trying to find food and protection and find a mate and find a place to poop. Well, some of them do. Some birds, they just shit everywhere. Um, but, I'm just saying, like, every animal's always out working because it's like, that's life. What did we do when we were just farmers? We were just farming, having our stock. We were out there working all the way till nighttime sometimes, depending upon if the crops needed to be planted, we had to do it the whole day. If they're
this
done,
is why
we could take a break. It's just like whatever had to happen or whatever we needed to have happen, we would do it. Now we're in a life where we could literally, if we made $1 million, we could sit on our ass. This is not natural to us as humans. This is not natural to us
yeah.
as a as an animal. As an animal, it's not natural to us to just sit around and do nothing. We're built to do things, and so now with the way society is, it's like there's you got 2 days out of the week most of the time you don't have to do anything. You're just like, I want to go do something. Let's go do something fun. Even if it's fun, you're still doing something. You're going somewhere. You're traveling somewhere. You're talking to somebody. You're doing something. We're built to do stuff. We're not just built to just observe all the time. That's why we get antsy. That's why it's good to have something to do. Jesus talked about the talents and fruits and producing things. It was to do good things, not just things, but good things. You know, I'm just trying to make the point with that. But yeah,
The what I wanted to bring up earlier to kind of go back to the whole guns thing is like you had feudal China,
okay.
and it was at this level of like you would teach your child like your special martial arts swordsman as soon as they were, in a rite of passage, 7 or 8, you had to start taking them out. And I'm not an expert, but and even in, European culture, they would take their children and trying to train them. The kids had their play swords and you took them out, you practice,
Because if the
they were
weapons are
built up to know.
disallowed, then you have to be the human weapon, right? Because other
You
people would
gave
come
you
and
gave
attack
what
you.
I'm saying.
They
I'm
could
saying that
overpower you.
you didn't teach the child like, no, you can't have a sword, and you didn't tell the commenter, no, you can't have a sword. You taught the child how to use a sword as best as they could. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you think, like, in a weird way, like, we could live in a society where children go to school and they actually train to shoot guns. They train, they're professionals to protect. Nobody's going to accidentally shoot. If we have a child that wanted to shoot everybody, and he'd be super professional on it, first off, I think you'd have a police officer, you should have police officers in schools and all that. That's what I'm saying. And as I'm saying, all guns should be under, and it would only take one generation before all this kind of stuff where it's like, no, no, we have professional guns. If you go to a house, that where more guns are around, what house wouldn't have their gun in a safe and stuff like that. It's all about proper education, is it not?
Hmm.
And education starts when they're a kid, is it not? You want to get these kids when
Yeah,
they're like 2 years old to be
yeah.
in preschool
It's
level nowadays. So why don't you just indoctrinate them a little bit better
it's the
into
same
some
thing when
better, safety laws?
when you have a kid and they're playing with a sharp knife or something like whoa 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 whoa, that's sharp, that could cut you, it will hurt very very badly, and you got to train them with the same way with a sharp knife or scissors or anything like
Yeah,
that.
usually you go, ow,
As soon as
ow, ow, ow.
you let them know that it could hurt very very badly. You
No,
have to let
no,
them know that
no.
it could be a dangerous thing, and they inherently know danger too. Babies inherently know danger. They just You know, if they see something wrong or something's hurting or something, someone starts yelling really loud. They're like, ah! It's like, save me! I don't know what's going to happen. They're inherently going to be afraid of something and start crying if something happens because it's built into us. The fact is, people forget we're still animals. There's still going to be some people that are just not at the intelligence level or have been trained the right way to understand something, and they could be a threat. Or other animals are a threat. Let's say you're in Alaska or something like that, and you need a gun, and they outlawed guns everywhere. And this big fucking bear that comes up, well, I'm glad they took away my gun. I'm gonna hit you with this stick, and it just kills you. I know it's a very basic example, but like maybe a bobcat comes out from
the feral pigs. They had these hunters got bombarded. You know? These hunters got bombarded by like death.
And you have no weapon. You have no weapon. Like they have
pigs,
but
and
what I'm
they
saying
had to
is
shoot them off. They had like high powered weapons that had they were armed. Thank goodness. There was like 20 pigs stormed up on them, ramming right into them. There were a bunch of them, and these pigs, you fall on the floor and they start goring you, you're done for. But they had, they had to pull out switching different guns and.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If there was an apocalypse, there could be a bunch of animals that are rabid, literally rabid. They all have the same disease. They'll attack you and give you rabies. Because the thing is, with humans with rabies will still drool from their mouth because that's how that's where the virus wants to come through. It wants to come through the teeth. And once it bites you and it clings into it, it drools itself into your system and you get it. So you still keep drooling. You keep creating all the saliva so that you can attack something else and bite it to give it off. Although humans don't have the sense or want to bite other things, but you still have the same sensation as a rabies animal. If you get rabies, you'll still have all the same stuff. Because there's feral animals out there. Sometimes it happens. Not very often for people in a city, obviously.
I always get a craving for flesh whenever I have a cold.
What?
I always get a craving for like human flesh whenever I have a cold. I was like, I just want to eat.
No, not eat. Now you're bullshitting me.
Eat somebody, whatever.
No, I'm just saying like there's certain instances where there could be Now, here's the thing. If remember when we got back and Alton was here and other people were here too, and we were talking about the stuff in school with the shootings in school. This is the big thing a lot of people want to probably know about, talk about. There are guns that are pepper ball guns. That will shoot pepper balls. Things that will shoot beanbags. Things that will do things like that. There are some taser guns. Officer could be armed with that and do a non-lethal, knock out the kid. Because if the kid's going to go into school and start shooting it because he doesn't care, he's been trained.
If the kid brought in a samurai sword, I bet he could take out more than 20 people.
Yeah, he could cut people. He could cut, like, if you get an arm cut off or a limb cut off, you could just bleed out immediately. Do you realize how fast you can bleed out? People are like, oh, well, the ER will get there in 15 minutes. That's 15 minutes too late. You bleed out. You're bleeding out in a matter of a minute or two. You're just
imagine if we're going to send in the police, and now if the police think we have the guns and he only has a samurai sword.
How do you block with your arms with a samurai sword? You'll cut off your fucking arm.
If that little kid's a psycho,
or cut it
and he
deep
wants
enough
to kill
that it's
everybody,
stuck in there, and you're like, ah,
and then you gotta like, closet, come out in the cop. Maybe one of the cops can get him, but if he's trying to kill everybody. That samurai sword he's gonna win up close range if he's a little sneaky kid.
Yeah, and then
crawling and coming out.
Guess what? Every room has a one door in and one door out. So that's the fatal funnel. So all the kids are trying to rush through the group, all balling up in the entrance because someone's trying to get out. And they're all twisted up in there, and then the other guy in the back is going whoop 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 whoop, just making short work of everybody that's in there because. Not everybody can get out the door fast enough, and they're all trying to cram through that one fatal funnel door, and then everybody's bunched up against it.
They run out of ammo.
Yeah, and that's a fun fact. You don't have a good samurai sword never runs out of ammo, so you can just go as long as you have agility for that. So, I mean, plus the fact is that with guns, if you are a moving target, you're less likely to get shot. But a sword will move with you and still cut you. Unless you have a piece of steel to block it, you're not going to stop a sword.
But look
I
how
have
feudal
swords.
China ended
I've
up.
practiced with it. You got to be very careful. Very careful.
Look look how feudal
It's
China ended up in the long run with everything when they kept training their kids in war, and there's all they ended up with this ideas of integrity, honor. Everything
mhm.
has to be by law. It's almost like the pirate code, the same idea, like you said. When everybody's at war with each other, a group will come together and start to be like, what are the principles and building blocks to not have this happen? And it comes with trusting others through honor
Mhm.
systems, and we have to, and it comes down to the same thing. Seems like a religion's a good place to start. It all comes down to the same things of you realize it's the only way. You can call it indoctrination all you want, but people can't survive when they teach their child that nothing means anything. The child's meaning of life shatters, and they don't grow up and say, like, that just means that I'm going to be the best human being. No, they're going to just become whatever, who knows, their most inner feeling, I guess. And if you think that that's okay, that everybody should just be raw and whoever they are deep down, well, I hate to say it, but the influences on society that they're going to learn from, none of it's positive. You're letting, like I said, Disney, which is a bunch of pedophiles, trying to teach your child. You're letting the news media try to teach you government. You're letting these schools try to teach you sexuality.
Yeah, it's
It
all
doesn't make
horrible.
any real sense.
It's
That's not really
completely.
what a government's supposed to be about. So it's just, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about it. It's just until we start to just say enough is enough, we'll just keep laughing. Stop laughing about it. I'm tired of the jokes. I'm
Yeah,
tired of it. I'm tired of people. That's why I said. That's why I'm starting to hate capitalism anymore. I'm not a socialist. I don't believe in socialism. I just believe in like a moral capitalism. After that episode, it made me think. I just believe more in a moral capitalism. The idea of like overproducing something, selling it for more, and stuff can go to waste, but you sell it for cheap, and somebody will eventually buy it, or it just gets thrown in the trash. Who cares? Losses and all that, and
I think there could be some kind of
to me, that's
transparent.
not
I
capitalism.
think if they had some kind of transparency with the system for capitalism to make it like a new, better version, it might be a little better because some people are like, well, anarchy's the best. I
Saying
don't
like
really know.
moral
I don't really know if
capitalism is like a
I don't really know
moral.
if anarchy is the best because anarchy is literally just kind of what we have. It's liberty without justice.
You
There's no
just
way
shouldn't allow to
to there's no way to
overproduce
regulate
things and
anybody
waste it.
in any way.
Wasting overproduced food should be just. I don't want to be like just say it should be a crime because I don't necessarily like more walls, but it should just be dealt with. That should be the number one thing. Government
Yeah,
should be
yep.
looking at how many grocery stores are throwing away food
Uh,
every single day. Why is this not being fixed?
yeah, because here's the thing: people complain about capital, and I think this is what we're headed to as the Aquarian Age. We're headed to a new way of life, but it's not going to be
Yeah.
feudalism. It's not going to be anarchy. It's not going to be capitalism, and it's definitely not going to be communism
So
or
yeah, it's not gonna be
socialism.
socialism and
It's
communism.
not going to be that because socialism has failed how many times already? It doesn't work. It doesn't work for the people because it only works for the people that are in government because they control all of it. And then you are just a pawn in a system. Now, it's kind of like what we have now with the crony corporatism. We're sort of the pawn in the system, although we can kind of fight back, but it's hard. It's not easy. There is a little more leeway with what we got with capitalism, but is it perfect? No, it's not absolutely perfect. But I think if there was a new way to make it a bit more transparent on certain things, and you'll hear people from, I'm just saying, there's arguments on the right saying like, communism doesn't work. It's like good in theory, but it doesn't seem to work because people just there's always going to be some asshole that wants to take control, right? And just do whatever he wants. Look at Stalin, for example. Good example right there. And then they're like, well, if we just, got the
Communism
capitalism,
creates coups.
and
The
that's sort
communism will just create division too. When you
it,
have this idea that you can't vote your way out of the next guy, and you have this idea that it's like,
yeah, they become a
he's
god
the
king.
only one. All you're
They
gonna
become
do
a
is create
god
a
king.
faction against him and
That
start wars.
exactly.
It's inevitable.
That's why a lot of people that were on the left here think that everybody's looking at Trump like a god king. It's because they look at their own side like a god king. They have to be a god king in order to represent them as a
Yeah.
commune, as a social society. He has to be the perfect figurehead, which is why anybody on the left isn't never going to have a bad rep, no matter how past or their current present situation. They can't have that. They can't let that be a thing. It doesn't exist. It's got to be like, this is our God, in a sense. Um, I'm just saying, it just looks like that. From an observer's perspective, it looks like that. But I think, honestly, from my perspective, I think we should go back to what we had before. We didn't have any parties. One or two representatives from every single state should be voted on until we have the president, not a two-party system that is so. The problem is it's become so corrupt that we can't seem to control it anymore. It's almost out of hand, and I think that's why a lot of people are worrying about a civil war and other things like that. It's so out of hand. We need to get it back to the point that we have more control with that, because that's a fact. The reason we want the guns too is to have more control, to have the possibility to defend ourselves. Less less. And the thing is, in the past, did they have rules as to whether you could have a weapon or not? When Jesus said, defend, lay down your life for your neighbor, what did that mean? You might have to use a weapon to defend your neighbor. Or you might have to
And that's
send him
yeah.
away and then become the sacrificial goat to be sacrificed so that they're away, you're dead, but they're safe. You have to
Yeah.
think about it like, what is
You
it from
can't
then
just cover in front of them and
and
die.
what is
They'll
it
just
now?
die right after you're dead.
Yeah, but how was it then and how is it now? Well, you can't just say, I'm going to defend you, you run away. They know where you live. They know your address, they
Yeah.
know your name, they know your social security number, they know all that stuff. You can't just do it the same way it was in the past. It doesn't work that way. Now, you need a weapon to defend your family. Or you need to find some sacred hidden space somewhere that nobody knows about to hide them in a hole for a year or two.
I'm ready
How
to
many
fall
people can do
asleep,
that?
man. Sorry, I'm falling asleep on you. It's getting late
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
fine. I
My phone
I
died, so.
I like this topic, man. I think this is fun, but I think more than that, I think it's something. It's almost like I think people need to wake up. I think people need to wake up, you, to understand this is where we're at in life, and some things we need to work on the future as a whole, as a society, where we need to help each other out, and we can't do that if we're all disarmed puppets of the state. Now, can we?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm not putting all my eggs in the governmental basket.
Yeah, it's never fully worked in society.
Hoping he'll disperse all my eggs equally.
Yeah, look at what happened to the Roman Empire. Everybody's like, the Roman Empire was great. Oh, they fell hard. They fell very, very hard, and everything just got dispersed from there. Because everybody put their eggs in the one basket. They're like, okay, you're in charge. I'll leave it to you. I'll take no
All right,
sovereignty.
man.
All right. Okay. Well,
I'm ready.
we'll close this out, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do the thing. Help this channel grow. We're pretty small right now. We're trying to grow it. And I don't know. Do you have any other advice before we close this out?
Be the light,
Okay.
I say.
Will do. Thanks for coming by, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you in the next We Are Aquarius episode.
It's all about the youth too.
Mm-hmm.
And